Hey, what's up, family? You know what I always say, and I want you to say it with me. Hope you're having a good day. If not, just know that the worst is behind you. Tomorrow's a new day that we manifest with our intentions, our thoughts and our intentions. So, sorry, I even got it wrong myself, but get the idea. So the gist is, hey, if you're not having a good day, just know that the worst is behind you. And we can manifest our better tomorrow with our thoughts and our intentions. So whenever things are going wrong, it definitely helps me to say that and to try and to help me at least get my thoughts on track and thinking in a more positive direction. So I actually traveling right now. I'm up in Maryland. And so anytime I come up here, I always like to come walking in the woods here. So this is really the first, I would say, woods that a forest that I walked through, and I really first made the connection with nature as a way of alchemizing the heavy energy that I was dealing with. So it's just really, it's the same forest I was walking through whenever I made the video talking about graduation there. Sorry for the sun there. So just finishing out the walk here, going through a loop on the way back to the car. So it was initially pretty chilly out this morning, but thankfully spirits brought the sun out. It's definitely kind of warming things up a little bit. So as I was walking back, it just got me to, I was reflecting kind of on my experiences that I've had out in this forest, all good, definitely some tied to some very emotional high points and low points, I guess you would say. So I'm actually writing a book about one of the experiences that I had here that kind of ties in with one of the videos that I made about being able to zoom out and perceiving the experiences that we're going through at any given time to see what the underlying lesson may be that Spirit is trying to teach us. So as I been going through this journey, especially learning to love myself, one inevitable thing that you will come across would be setting boundaries. And that's definitely one area where I'm learning, and as I progress through it, I definitely will make updated videos as far as my experience. But the lesson, I guess, that I want to relay today is not being afraid to set the boundaries, because one of the biggest shocks, I guess I would say, to me when it came to setting boundaries was just some of the people that I had to set boundaries with, and some pretty firm ones that I never thought in a million years that I would need to do that. We all have people in our lives that we feel like support us and have love for us because of the things that they do and say. But one thing, I apologize if the wind is kind of interfering or the mic's picking up a little bit. So walking through the woods here and the wind's blowing. But we all have people in our lives that we look at with a fondness. We feel like we're very close to them, and there may be other people in our lives that may do us dirty, but these people, these core group of individuals would never, ever do me dirty or put me in a situation to where I felt like less than myself, or whatever adjective you want to insert. So the idea is we all have a core group of people that we feel like would never betray us, or we feel like have our back no matter what. And I felt the exact same way. So just going through a story, my oldest brother, I've got an older brother and a younger brother. Well, I should say I had an older brother. He passed away back in 2007, and he left 3 kids behind, 2 girls and a boy. So I had my own struggles that I was going with, and I wasn't a very great uncle. So I've really prided myself over the past, 3+ years of really stepping up to the plate, trying to be the uncle that I would want my brother to be if I wasn't here and I had kids. So I really put my all into it, trying to make up for for the years where I was, drinking heavily and not really present. And so I was really getting into it. I was really enjoying it, really loving it. But every time I got around one of his daughters, the facial expression would be a smile and, oh, hey, Unc, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera. But I just noticed that once the cordial nature wore off, I could just feel this weird energy in the air that like they didn't really want me there, or she didn't really want me there or want me around. And I didn't really say anything at first. So I just kept playing it by ear, just like, okay, no, maybe you're just overreading it, overthinking it. So I kept creating situations for us to get together. I'll never forget, she's a very big fan of Nicki Minaj. So, I'm not a fan of Nicki Minaj really, but she was. I wanted to spend some time with her. So I bought concert tickets for us to go to the concert together, for us to hang out, spend some, uncle niece time together. I mean, the whole entire time, I got the impression like she didn't even really want to be there. She's always someone that posts on Facebook, this, that, and the fifth, every single little thing. But when it came to that, didn't post anything about it. I don't care that she didn't post anything about it. It was just the energetic feeling that I was picking up. That was a recurring theme every time that I would be around her. And so eventually I just looked at it from the standpoint of, spirit just showing me, truly where her heart lies. We've all heard the saying that actions speak louder than words. So on the surface, to me, her words were showing that she cared about me, that she wanted me to be a part of her family because she's got 2 younger boys. And so I would, enjoy coming down, even though I had to drive a little bit to go to basketball games and really genuinely be there for them, just because I know that's not how our family dynamic has been, because of some other generational cycles that I'm working on breaking when it comes to family connectivity and, being there for family. So it was really hard because in essence, I understood at that point that I needed to set a boundary with her, especially with the way that I was being made to feel. I can understand if I had done something, and I've had visions and kind of flashes in my head of kind of a conversation I feel like she and I need to have, and I feel like it's what's contributing to it. My thought process is, hey, we're all adults, so why not, do the adult thing and voice the concerns, so that way we can talk about it, if there are anything out there, kind of putting it behind us and moving forward. So I still remember when I was 14 years old, she was a baby, and I remember I was staying at my brother's house because we had came down to visit family from the Midwest, and I was laying on the couch in the living room, and she was laying in one of those swingers. You can put the baby in, you wind it up, and they just swing back and forth to put them to sleep. And so my brother and her mom were back in the bedroom asleep. So she was in the swing in the living room with me. She wound up waking up in the middle of the night. And, I'm 14 years old. I don't really know what to do with babies and whatnot. So I went over, and I guess my Cancer North Node kicked in, my nurturing nature. So I went over, I picked her up out of the swing set, and I brought her back over to the couch where I was, and I laid down on the couch on my back, and I laid her facing me, laying directly on my chest, and just basically laid there until she went back to sleep. And that's something that always stayed with me, because to me, she and I have a special bond because of that, because it's not something that I didn't get a chance to experience that with her brother or with her sister. With any parent that has a child, a grandparent, or anybody that deals with multiple children, they all have their own characteristics. And so you have your favorite qualities that you like in each of them. So, I love all 3 of my nieces and nephews, so it's not about one being better than the other one, but it was just the way that this particular one was treating me. So in essence, we talked every day from the standpoint of having, wishing each other a good day, And like I said, I would go to her various events that her sons were having, and I felt like I was always there. And so it started getting to a point to where I would send her messages and she wouldn't respond to me. And so it got to a point where I was just like, okay, she's shown me enough of how she truly feels. So it's time for me to set and enforce a boundary here, because I don't like how she's treating me and how she's making me feel. So in essence, I just stopped communicating with her. I got into my Queen of Swords energy and basically cut it off. It was one of the hardest things that I've had to do, like I said, because one, I feel a loyalty to my brother to be there for his children, just like I would want him to be there for my children if I were no longer here. But there's the old saying, it takes two to tango. So my desire to be there for my brother's children and to show up for them shouldn't be trumped by how they treat me and how they make me feel, or how, I'm saying they, but in this particular instance, it's not all of them, it's just the one individual. So I'm big on family. I know we work things out, but just using it as an example of a person that I never thought that I would have to put a boundary up, especially a firm boundary of just not talking and not communicating with someone. So, I thought it would have been plenty of other people before it would have ever been her. So that was definitely a surprise. Another one was my parents. So I love my mom and dad very much. Just like everybody, they have their own challenges. But this is when I really got heavy into meditation. And my dad had called me one time and I was in the middle of a meditation, so I didn't answer the phone, but he kept calling back. So I was like, all right, let me stop my meditation, go see what he wants and check on him. So lo and behold, he wanted me to help somebody that, in my opinion, disrespects him. Both him and my mom very heavily wanted his help on doing something. And I basically refused to help him because I told him I didn't like how that person treated him and my mother. So I wasn't going to do anything to help them, because you don't treat disrespect with respect. So I told him that I wasn't going to help him. He got mad and upset and basically told me, well, you're doing things that I don't like. So as of this moment, I'm not going to talk to you anymore. And so I'm just like, okay, taken back. But once again, like I said, when it comes to boundaries, there's another saying that when people show you who they are, it's up to you to believe them. So in that moment, me and my dad have had a pretty contentious relationship ever since I was a teenager. So it was no surprise, but in my mind, this was the final straw. So the boundary that I put in place in that instance was respecting his wishes. So he said that he didn't want to talk to me anymore in that moment because he felt like I was doing things that he didn't like. So basically, he had already stopped talking to me. So basically, I just respected his wishes. I didn't pursue him to try and call him. And one thing I noticed is during that period, my parents would still talk and communicate with my ex. And so from time to time, she would call me. It was just like, well, hey, I just talked to your parents. They're doing good, etc., etc. And she's like, oh, I talked to your mom. And one thing I noticed was that every time my mom would call and talk to her, I would ask her, did she ask about me? And she would say, no, she never asked about you. So long story short, fast forward, once we get to a situation where we're finally start talking again, my mom's like, oh, I don't know what happened. Your dad didn't tell me anything of what you guys happened. I know you guys just stopped talking from time to time, but I didn't know what was going on, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm thinking to myself, what mother is going to go 6 months or so without talking to her son unless she feels like she's respecting someone's wishes? Like say my dad told her really what was going on, and so she was standing by him in his decision, even though she may not agree with it. But then in essence, in my opinion, kind of playing in my face and trying to make me believe that she really cared or she was really concerned about me. But if that's the case, you didn't ask about me. So that showed me that I really needed to put some boundaries in place with my parents as well. So the next question is what did that look like? They're my parents. At the end of the day, they're not completely toxic, so it's not something to where I would feel like I need to completely sever and just walk away and have no association with them whatsoever. But they did have their toxic qualities that impacted me, impacted myself, and just the energy that they brought about. So another story is I got a new position at work that I've really been working hard to get. My parents came up for one weekend right after I got the position, and I like drinking a nice scotch, or a bourbon. So me and my dad went out to get some food, and I stopped by the liquor store to pick something up nice. The idea was something for me to drink, for me to celebrate this new opportunity that I got at work. We got home, me and my dad both drank a little bit of it, really liked it. So the next day, I could start feeling something. My dad was getting ready because they were going to some religious event. And I was sitting on the couch. My dad was sitting in a chair, putting the socks and stuff on. And while we were at the liquor store, I said that I'm buying this alcohol for me as a celebration for me getting this promotion. So he heard me. He knew exactly why I bought it. Why the next day did he ask me? Because he really liked it and he really wanted it. So he could have just asked me, hey son, do you mind? I really like that scotch that you got. Do you mind if I, have it, or can I have some, et cetera, et cetera? It would have been okay. But he came to me and he was like, well, hey son, did you buy that scotch yesterday for me and for me to have? And I'm thinking to myself, clearly, that I just got this job. I said yesterday that I bought it for my promotion. Like, I didn't say all this. I was just thinking it in my head. But I was just like, know what? Hey, I really don't need to be drinking it anyways. So you can go ahead and have it. I can always get into my car now. So a little chilly out here. So I just want to get inside. So I was like, basically, you can have it. I got it for my promotion. But I really don't need it anyway, so I basically told him that he could have it. So my upstairs neighbor gave me a Monstera plant because I've always wanted a Monstera plant. So she had one that she's been maintaining for like 4 or 5 years, and it got pretty big, overgrown. She never really took care of it as far as maintenance on it, so it was very leggy, bunch of air roots. So I went through and I trimmed it back and put all the trimmings I made into water to water propagate them, so that way I can make additional plants. So I had mason jars set up in this counter. I had these mason jars set up with the propagations in them. When I told him, let me back up a little bit. So I had the mason jars set up, I had the propagations in them, and they were set up on this countertop that, in essence, in order to walk to my kitchen from where my dad was, you had to kind of brush up against them. These plants have been there for at least a month or two. I've brushed up against them and never knocked them down, never had an issue. Why is it as soon as my dad asked that question, and I was like, yeah, you can go ahead and have it, he jumped up so fast and ran over there to get that alcohol that he knocked the propagations down, and all of a sudden, there was this water all over the floor. I was in another room and I heard it, and I'm like, what in the world? And I go in there and I see that water on the floor, and he's coming back with the scotch, basically kind of carrying it like a baby or whatever it is out of there. And then he starts trying to correct it, pick the plant up that he knocked down, and all of a sudden just more plants just start falling. And I'm just like, you know what, Dad, just stop, back up, I'll take care of it. Because he had dress clothes on because they were getting ready to go to a religious event. So, I told him to basically just back up, I'll take care of it, not to worry about it. So I get the mop out, I clean everything up, and my mom was like, asking my dad, did you get anything on you? And he was like, no, I'm fine. And in that moment, Spirit gave me a download, and it was just like, basically showing me that trying to figure out the right way to articulate it. In essence, it was showing me that because my dad is an emotional person, that whenever he makes decisions or he approaches things, he approaches it from a highly emotional place. And that's what I was seeing when I told him that he could have that scotch, that he jumped up and it didn't matter whatever else was going on. He was in a highly emotional place of, this is something I want. My son just gave it to me, so I'm going to go get it because I really want it. He didn't care about anything else that was going on, and he wound up causing a mess. Well, in causing that mess, I realized by my mom asking him a question, none of the mess, none of the water, because it was I can't remember the measurement, but it was a really big mason jar, and I had like 6 of them sitting up there, and he knocked 2 of them down, plus another like candle holder that I had that I was using for to propagate. But in essence, he knocked all this water down that it should have gotten on anybody that spilled all that stuff over, and none of it got on him. So in my mind, from what Spirit gave me the download, was because he moves from emotions, he's going to create situations in your life, but he's not going to get dirty from the situations that he creates. I'm the one, because I was the one that was cleaning it up. I was the one that had the mop. I was the one that was mopping up all the water. I didn't knock the plants down. I didn't create the mess, but I was the one cleaning it up. So like I said, my mind, Spirit was showing me and using as a prime example that, yes, he's your father, but look how he moves from emotions. In essence, say if I want to create a business, if I get him involved in my business, then it's a very high likelihood that he would move in that business from an emotional state that winds up causing me issues in the business that won't impact him, because he would technically just be an employee. I would be the one owning the business and be the representative of it. So any damages that he would cause, he would be able to walk away scot-free and not have to worry about anything, while I'm left there holding the bag. And in that moment, it was it was amazing to kind of have the eyes to really be able to see what was taking place in that moment, and not just see it as an incident that happened. It was really be able to see what was going on and what was taking place and what Spirit was showing me. So in that instance, I recognized that I had to put a boundary in place when it came to my father, when it comes to certain things I'm working on, that you can say I don't want anybody messing up, but I keep hearing a theme repeated ad nauseum that says to keep things under wraps. If you're looking at doing something, you're planning on doing something, don't tell people, just pop out with it. And in essence, that would be a key example in that moment, that if I'm doing something, that if I tell him about it, that there's a high likelihood that he would sabotage it somehow out of an emotional state, and he would walk away from it clean, nothing happening to him, but yet I would be the one holding the bag. And that's not something that I want to go through. That's not something I want to experience. So that taught me that I needed to put a boundary in place with him and with my mother, that being cordial with them, being respectful of them. But as far as going any deeper, is really just recognizing that I need to keep them at arm's length. So I love them to death, but as it stands, the boundary that I have with them is keeping them at arm's length, having the conversations with them, being the respectful son, ensuring that they're cared for, they have what they need. But anything at a more intimate level beyond that, is not something that I'm willing to do at this particular point, because I've learned my lesson. So, those are 3 people there that I never thought I would have to put boundaries with, my oldest niece, and my mom and dad, 3 people that I love more than anybody in this world. But at the end of the day, like I said, when people show you who they are, you have to believe them until their actions prove otherwise. So, and that ties back into self-love, because even though it's hard, who do you love more? Do you love yourself, or do you love those individuals and the way that they're treating you? So, if you love the way they're treating you, you don't think there's anything wrong with it, hey, have at it. I'm not the one to tell you that what to do or how to move in your life. I'm just one that's telling you, hey, how I'm moving through my life, the things that I recognize, the things that I see, and the actions that they cause me to take to show myself and prove to myself that I truly love myself, not just in words, but through action. So family, I would say with that, who in your life, as you go through before I say that, as you go through your healing journey, especially if you're a people pleaser like me, you will have tons of people in your life that are used to walking all over you, and you will have to establish boundaries once you start to ascend and you start to be able to see the way people are really acting that you weren't able to see before, because you were in that people pleasing mentality and you weren't willing to see what was right in front of your face. But as you start to see those things and you start to awaken, the next step will become to put boundaries in place with those people that have been treating you the way that you didn't want to be treated or you didn't like to be treated. My encouragement is just when that time arises, just take it slowly. The easy thing is to go from 0 to 100 and just cut people off completely. Some people deserve to be cut off completely. Some people just deserve to be kept at arm's length. And that's where you'll have to decide the people in your life, the relationships you have, are they someone that you should cut off completely, or they're someone that you should keep at arm's length? Just because you put somebody at arm's length or you cut them off completely doesn't mean that they have to stay in that position for the remainder of your life. But what we do require is for those individuals to put work in, just like we're putting in to make ourselves better and improve ourselves. We expect them to put in that same exact work to make themselves better and to improve the dynamic. So it's not, we're not driving on one-way streets anymore. We're not the ones that's putting in the work. We're not the ones that's putting on the giant backpack and carrying everybody else's problems. Our backpacks going forward has enough room for our stuff and the occasional, baggage that we may pick up and help people with. But our primary focus going forward is on ourselves and our connection with spirit. So, because we have keep the faith in that, then everything else will work itself out. So that's it, family. So, I kind of like being in the car, so maybe I'll start doing some more videos like this. So I'm actually sitting in the vehicle right now. It's actually one of the vehicles that I manifested. So that will be kind of the next story that I'll kind of go into. So as I say before, the times in between videos, I'm living life just like you guys, learning how to be my authentic self and to live my life as the authentic version of Brandon, the version that was always there, but I made small because I didn't want anybody else to feel uncomfortable. So it's my time to shine now. Look at the sunlight, popping off a brother. I definitely love it. I'm definitely here for it. And I know that, I can't wait to hear all the stories from all of you as you go through your stories and you share your stories with me and with others to encourage, because I'm not the only one going through this. I'm just the one that's being vulnerable and sharing my story with you all. So that way it gives you encouragement. So the more of us that go through it and that awaken and ascend, the more we can help others, because we all have contracts. So my contract right now is to be a shining light to all of those who I made agreements before I incarnated into this reality. So, and that's what I'm doing. I'm holding up my end of the bargain, and I'm always here for you. So, you're going through those dark nights of the soul, going through those bouts of depression, you don't know what to do, how to transmute them. What worked for me may not work for you, but if I can at least be a listening ear to help give you that higher perspective and help you to zoom out and see your situation from a higher perspective that allows you to understand and determine what it is that you need in your life to help you get to where you want to be, then I'm more than happy to do that. So I love you, family. I love you, family. I love you, family. So, we all we've got, and I wouldn't want a better family than what we've got here. So I love you. 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 Have a great day, family.